My girlfriend, 21F, cheated on me, 23M, with my father, 54M. Do I cut my dad off or try to forgive him? We have been together for over a year. My girlfriend and father last week set me down to tell me they had a week-long affair a couple months ago. They only had romance 3 times they said, and after the 3rd time they say they both felt extremely guilty and mortified at their actions. They've been wanting to tell me since then but didn't have the hearts. I always knew they got on well, they bonded over many shared interests, but I never saw this coming. I feel completely sick. I haven't eaten hardly anything since they told me. I haven't officially broken up with her yet, but it is obvious as I haven't responded to any of the texts/calls she's sent. When they first told me and after it had sank in, I left and haven't said a word to anyone outside of work since. I've been a total ghost to my whole family and friend group. My dad and I are very close. For my whole life I have looked up to him. He and my mom divorced when I was a teenager, but they have been very friendly to each other, which made the process so much easier. I want to forgive my dad. But if my girlfriend had cheated on me with another person, I would easily cut them both off. And in a weird way my dad has hurt me so much more by doing this than she has. I could get over a cheating girlfriend. But my relationship with my father, a relationship I cherished, is destroyed. And it's his fault. My question is this: should I forgive my father? How can I forgive him? Should I tell my mom or brother? Would I be cruel for completely cutting him off, which is what my heart is telling me to do? Too long, didn't read my girlfriend and dad had romance 3 times and felt so bad they told me.
Hey guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help me out, thanks.
Harsh as it may be to hear, your dad put his chance of romance before his love for you. I wouldn't have done that to a friend, let alone kin, and I've had the opportunity to know that for a fact. I think I would want to keep as far away from him as possible, for the foreseeable future, and then if I find that I can forgive him without excess pain to myself, then I'll do that. If not, then the man can sit in the dirty bath water he poured for himself. Whatever, I'd make the decision based on how I felt, not on what I think other people expect of me or what I think I should do. I personally would tell my mother and brother, because this is a situation that will affect your relationship with your father for the rest of your life, and they should know the cause. You don't have to ask them to side with you because it's family and that poop is complicated, but at least they'll see the situation based on the facts. I'm a father about your dad's age with a son about your age. So as I was reading this I just kept getting enraged. I can't imagine the mental gymnastics involved for your father to be able to do this. I just can't. As hard as it sounds, dump both of them. I just can't see any way to forgive either of them. Goddamn. I had a similar situation, but my ex ended up marrying my dad after we had split up. I haven't spoken to either of them in 27 years. Holy poop, if they stayed together I'd never be able to forgive my dad. Update, my girlfriend, 21F, cheated on me, 23M, with my father, 54M. Do I cut my dad off or try to forgive him? I have received several PMs asking me to update. A bit has happened since then, but I will try to be brief to avoid a wall of boring text. So I told my mom and brother like everyone suggested. My mom was heartbroken, and we talked for a few hours. She told me she was not surprised. When they were married she suspected him of having inappropriate contact with students. My dad is a handsome man and she told me many girls would give him that kind of attention. She did not know if he was unfaithful for certain though. My brother took it as I expected. He blamed my ex and told me I should date less slutty women. I feel like this is missing the point, but whatever. I can't stand that guy anyway. For the following week after I dumped my ex, she would call and text me a lot. The gist was basically she loved me and I should forgive her because she made a mistake but hates herself for it. She told me it was just romance and that she wanted to fulfill her fantasy of having romance with an older male teacher before we got married. I didn't respond to any of these messages or return her calls. I hadn't heard from my dad until a few days ago when he came by to reconcile. He let himself in as he has a key and we talked. He told me about how the affair started with them flirting a little. Eventually they had romance. He said while they had romance 3 times, only the last time was actual penetrative romance. The first 2 she just blew him apparently and he fingered her. He told me this like I was going to be relieved they only did it once. In reality I was horrified that now a detailed picture was in my mind. I asked him if he had been in contact with my ex. He said yes and that they have had dinner a few times as friends because he was worried about her. According to my ex, I was emotionally torturing her, and my dad believes he is responsible for her. I told him I would not have a relationship with him ever if he kept in contact with her. He said I was his son and that he would be in my life regardless. I just held my tongue. He then told me it was shitty to tell my mom and brother like I was trying to ruin his reputation. I was done so I just nodded and apologized. I know that was cowardly, but I didn't want an argument. That was a few days ago. I haven't told anyone else other than my immediate family. I still don't know whether to totally cut contact with my dad. Part of me does, part of me doesn't. Too long didn't read. Told my family, broke up with my GF, dad came over to reconcile. I still don't know what to do. Edit, people are concerned with me apologizing. I do not actually feel remorse. I told him that because it is what he wanted to hear and I wanted him to leave. At that point I was just nodding along to avoid an argument and him potentially staying longer. Also I should have asked for the key, but like someone said here it is difficult for me to face him so I admit I wasn't thinking straight. You apologized to your dad for him having romance with your girlfriend. He doesn't have a reputation that you ruined, he ruined it himself. Duck that guy. Oh, he has to take her to dinner because you're emotionally torturing her? Forget that noise, there's consequences for her actions. Edit, also why did she tell you about her fantasy like you'd give a poop? Oh, you wanted to have romance with an old dude. Oh, okay, that makes it all good. He's still ducking her. Your dad is a liar and a huge piece of poop. Tell everyone you know, tell all your ex's friends. Me, 27F, with my boyfriend, 50M, of 3 months, his kid warned me about him. Red flag? I have been dating Jesse for about 3 months. It's been a bit of a whirlwind romance. Jesse is the kind of guy I've always wanted, confident and smart and makes me feel like a princess. The romance is great and I feel like we have a deep connection. Last Friday, Jesse and I went out and ran into his son, Julian, 19, at the bar. Julian shouldn't have been there as he is underage, so I assume he had a fake ID. Jesse was excited to see him, but Julian seemed like he didn't want to see Jesse at all. It was very awkward. Later, while Jesse was talking to someone he knew from work, Julian approached me. He told me, he'll get tired of you. He won't care about you anymore and just see you as something he has to spend money on. Then he'll find something new. He always does. He said he was sorry and then left the bar. I didn't know how to respond so I talked to Jesse. He told me how his ex-wife and stepdaughters had poisoned Julian against him. I've always known Jesse to be very generous, so I don't believe the money part is true, but I do know that Jesse hardly ever spends time with his son. He says Julian won't answer his calls or texts and avoids him. Jesse also works a significant amount and finds it difficult to balance his time. How do I know if this is a red flag or not? This kid could just have a warped perception of his father. But I can't help but feel badly for Julian, he seemed really sad at the bar. TL, didn't read boyfriend's kid warned me at the bar. How to respond? He's 50 years old and chasing after a 27-year-old. Listen to his son. Someone that feels too good to be true usually is. Update me, 27F, with my boyfriend, 50M, of 3 months, his kid warned me about him. Red flag? It's been a couple of months since my last post. Thanks for all the advice, even though it was tough to hear. I ended up deciding to move forward with the relationship but keep an eye out for any other red flags. To backtrack, early in our relationship I got a text from a friend of mine that he had seen Jesse at the local strip club. I spoke to Jesse about it, and he said he did not consider it cheating because he did not get lap dances or touch the dancers. I let him know then that I would let it slide, but in the future, I am not okay with him going to strip clubs without talking to me about it first. He agreed, but I kept noticing he would be out working late. He told me he had an emergency, flood, and had to work late, and I ended up seeing him at a gas station that I was driving by. I stopped and talked to him, and he said he had just gotten off work, but he smelled like cigarettes and alcohol, and his clothes weren't dirty like they typically are when he works flood damages. I also noticed he was very protective of his work phone. He leaves his other cell phone out all the time, but once I asked to use his work phone to look something up, and he basically told me no and to go get my phone charging in the other room. It all just built up, so I snooped. I got up in the middle of the night when I was staying at his place and looked through both phones. On his work phone, I found texts to escorts and strippers. On his other cell, I found a ton of texts to his ex-wife, who he promised me he didn't talk to anymore unless it was about Julian. Apparently she just started dating again a month ago, and he absolutely shredded her for it. He said some very cruel things, like you must have found a guy who loves fat asses if he'll be seen with you. She never replied, as far as I can tell. Looking at those texts, I knew that any future with Jesse was going to end like this. I also saw that he never messages Julian. What's worse, their text feed is Julian reaching out every couple months and getting ignored. One text from a few months ago was Julian telling him that his band had a gig and asking if he would come. I remember that weekend. Me and Jesse stayed in that night and had a bunch of romance. He never even mentioned his son had a show. I felt sick. I went online and bought 10 copies of his band's EP a few days later. In the end, I decided to just ghost him. He obviously had no respect for our relationship, and I felt I didn't owe him anything. When he was at work, I got all my things out of his apartment and left a note. I just wrote that his family was right about him and to not contact me again. He texted me later that he had an emergency and had to work late. He obviously hadn't seen my note and I just didn't respond. The next day he found the note and started messaging me about it. I decided to take a page from his ex-wife's book and ignore him. As the week moved on and he realized I was serious, the messages started getting hateful, things I don't care to repeat. I blocked his number then. It is disturbing for me to think about what a cruel and vicious person he ended up being. If Julian hadn't talked to me at that bar, how much longer would it have taken me to see this side of him? I also have this weird guilty feeling that I'm a home wrecker, even though Jesse obviously wrecked his home himself. I really thought of me and Jesse as having a potential for a long-term relationship. It hurts to have those hopes crushed. I'm not getting any younger. I got a lot of comments last post about the age gap. I'm not really interested in that. I know several couples with significant age gaps. I'm a grown woman, not a teenager, and I can choose to date someone older. Hopefully it won't be in butthole next time. TL, doctor, my ex-boyfriend's son was right about him. I'm feeling lost and second-guessing myself, but at least we aren't together anymore. Edit, thanks for teaching me a lesson. This is a painful time for me. I won't be responding to any more comments or PMs. Thanks. Good on you for getting out. Think about dropping a note to Julian so you can thank him for the warning. The kid might feel better for knowing that his warning helped someone for once. Besides, it can be validating, when dealing with an harmful butthole, to have someone else go yup, he's a jerk alright and you were right. I did consider it, but I felt like I am probably the last person he wants to hear from.